Hello everyone, welcome to a quick announcement video where I'd like to announce the very first Shmup 1cc Kumite competition, which will be taking place this Saturday, February 13th, starting at 8 AM MST. And if you're not sure how that converts to your time zone, no worries, because if you look at the schedule on Hararo, it will automatically convert to your time zone, so you'll know when it starts for you, but that's kind of the window of when it's starting, at least for me. I'm really excited for this event because it is a new idea that hasn't been done before. It is something that I've heard talked about over the years, even listening back to the old podcast episodes that came out the other day. There was an episode where we discussed this basically. We would discuss some alternative shmup events that aren't just super play demonstrations, aren't just score run demonstrations, doing something a little bit more creative and fun with the genre, but also still has the spirit of what makes the genre fun. And I thought having a survival gameplay competition is a really good first step for a number of reasons. The biggest reason is just that I think it's going to be really fun, and I really look forward to playing it and playing this in the future as well. So that's number one thing, is survival gameplay is actually really fun. The trouble with survival gameplay is that you can't normally use it in a competitive setting, right? Because in most shmups, especially the ones that I play, being good at survival doesn't necessarily translate to high scores because the way scoring systems often work. And so it just gives a chance for a new meta of these games to be played, to develop. So that's the first thing I'm really excited about. Another thing is that it is much easier to implement than score run competitions. The reason why is because the way scoring works is that players get into different scoring tiers much more quickly. It's harder to compare them to one another. For example, Jamers and myself will both be playing Dodonpachi. He will most likely destroy me because he's very good at survival in Dodonpachi as well as scoring. So it's unlikely I will win. We're still close enough in that it can be interesting, and I think that's the big point of trouble, because for example, for scoring, it's basically literally impossible for me to beat him at scoring with my current routing and stuff and his current routing, unless he completely throws it, which is super unlikely. And that's something that's going to come across in a lot of shmups. It's very hard to match players up on a scoring basis because the way routing works and all that sort of thing. But on survival, it's much easier actually, because the way you both are sort of leveling the playing field, where your scoring routes aren't going to necessarily translate to survival routes. And also it is much easier just to pick up a game and play well survival, rather it is to optimize it for scoring and know all the scoring tricks and scoring mechanics. So it just really opens up the games and makes matchmaking much easier. The third reason why I'm really excited for this format is because I think it's going to be really fun to watch for the viewers, because the goals are clear, the mistakes are clear, the concepts are clear. You're trying to get the furthest you can in the game with the least deaths possible, with the least bombs used and all that sort of stuff. And I'll get into that in a moment here, but the stakes and the competition, I think, are much more clear. And so for all these reasons, I'm really excited to present this, and hopefully everyone tunes in so we can do more events of this kind in the future. So with all that said, let me explain the format a little bit and how the winner is chosen. So first of all, there is a 20-minute timer. This is becoming a standard in shmup demonstrations. Before that, we had kind of some interesting reset rules in, I think, Shmup Slam 2. But then Shmup Mania came out with the timer, and we all looked at that and we're like, yeah, that's a much better idea. So now we use a timer. This event has a more flexible timer than Shmup Slam, simply because there are less runs to be played. And also, since it's a novel format, I thought it'd be good to give it a little bit more flexibility. So there will be a 20-minute timer in this competition. So basically, as players, you can reset your run as many times as you want within that 20 minutes. Once that 20 minutes is up, you are locked into the run. So there's a real meta that develops around the timer, where basically you decide, okay, if I reset, if you have an early death, you should just reset. I mean, that's just really easy for the meta. But when you start getting into mid or late, that's where it gets interesting. Let's say you die in Dodonpachi, you die in stage 6. Basically, your choice is, okay, I didn't die up till stage 6. Do I reset now? But if I reset now, I would be locked out of this run, and I'd have to basically no miss the first loop to make up for the reset. So it is really interesting, and I think it adds a lot of depth, and also gives players a chance to relax their nerves and get more settled in, which I think can be a real thing in live demonstrations. So I think everyone really appreciates the timer here. So just know, if people are resetting within that timer, they're not actually losing yet. I just want to make that clear to the audience. So the way this works is actually pretty different from other shmup demonstrations and shmup competitions you've seen before, because again, it's all about survival. So the first winning condition is simply progression. This is very simple. The player who makes it furthest in the game wins. And that's it. That's all that it comes down to. However, when you get into a sort of tie scenario, this is when the other factors come into play. So a tie scenario would be either A, both the players die at the exact same point or very close to the exact same point. I think we're going to be pretty precise when it comes to measuring progression because it's easy to do that. For example, let's say both players enter stage 5. The first player dies at the beginning of stage 5. The second player dies halfway through stage 5. Second player wins. It's that simple. If maybe they say they fight the same boss, they both die on the same boss, but the boss has a health bar, and the second player took way more health off of the boss, that player wins. Also pretty simple. However, there could be scenarios where they both die on the same pattern, they both die on the same phase of the boss, and there is no boss health. Or they both, this is the most likely of course, they both just clear the game. So they both clear, so they both met the progression requirement. That's the first one. So the second point of comparison is how many deaths have occurred per player. This is important to understand deaths, not extends accumulated, because extends accumulated is much more related to scoring most of the time. For example, let's say in Garega, one player is playing a route that is a highly scoring route, and so they end the game with 3 extends, and the other player ends the game with 2 extends. However, with the death count, the first player with the 3 extends died like 8 times, and the second player who ended with 2 extends died 4 times. So we count the deaths, not the extends. So that's important to understand. It's all about, can you not die? It's a survival thing. So the extends don't really actually matter. For instance, let's say in Esperade, there's that hidden extend on the subway. One player picks it up, the other player doesn't. But the player who picked it up actually ends up dying more than the player who didn't. It doesn't matter. It's all about the amount of deaths, not the amount of lives in stock. That's important. Let's say they both clear the game. They both have the same amount of extends. The next point of differentiation is bombs used. Not hypers or things like that. It has to be bomb items. In Garega, special weapons would count as bombs. So basically, how many bombs have you used throughout the run? The less you've used, the better, basically, right? Like in Dodonpachi, for instance. This is the third point of delineation, where if you need to use your bombs for survival, do it, because the overall goal is just to make it furthest in the game. But this is the idea that both players are so honed in, both players are so good at survival, that they're likely not going to die. Then they're going to actually start keeping an eye on their bombs. I think this is most likely going to come up in the Dodonpachi Resurrection run. So you keep an eye out on that. So that's the last point. And then if they tie on all these things, so everyone clears, everyone has the same amount of deaths, everyone used the same amount of bombs, then and only then will score be counted. And I think that's very unlikely, but just in case that happens, we'll have the winner based on score. But that's very unlikely to be the outcome. So yes, everyone tune in. I'll go over the schedule real quick. So beginning, we have Hacha Mecha Fighter with Plasmo and Trap 15, Crimson Clover World Explosion with Macho Manmo, Line Eber, and Muffin. So it's a versus 3. And from what I understand, the lore on this is that Line Eber is the sort of mentor to the other two, and these are his students of Shmup, so they're trying to team up to take him down. Pretty cool little story there. Dodonpachi Resurrection with Daring Spino, Queen Charlene, and Silver Star. All very experienced Dodonpachi Resurrection players. The real question is, can they take down Daring Spino, the Dodonpachi Resurrection beast? So this would be really cool. I'm really looking forward to this one. Dodonpachi with myself and Jamers. The storyline here is that Jamers will absolutely destroy me. The likelihood that I will beat him is very, very low. My goal is basically to make it to Hibachi, and I'm sure we'll see him make a clear live, which will be really, really cool. Yeah, playing Dodonpachi live is a brutal game in any respect. After that, Esperade with Soft Drink and Neon Daggers. I'm looking forward to this because I'm not sure who the favorite is. This will be one that would be interesting because both players are saying, I'm not sure if I'm going to win, but I don't think there's a clear favorite here. After that, Super XYX with Yu-Gi-Oh! And Haosu. And then after that, I'll do a little Electric Live demonstration, or Electric Live episode where I'll be hanging out with the chat. There's kind of some dead time there, but I've been making plans to make it fun so that we're not bored waiting around for the next run. After that will be Battle Garega. I'm really looking forward to this because I want to see how Battle Garega works in this format. Technically speaking, of course, you could just play your normal route and just hope to clear, and that will likely get you through, but I'll be interested to see if the players come up with some sort of survival-specific strategies and stuff like that. Then at the end is Astral Gunners with oh yeah, the players for Battle Garega are Rocco and Doc Viper. And Doc Viper, for those who don't know, has contributed a ton to the wiki page for Battle Garega. And Rocco, I believe, owns a arcade in Europe, a Mikado arcade in Europe or something like that. So that would be really cool to see an arcade owner in the battle. And then at the end, Astral Gunners, Brian Reboot versus Dash Retro. I'm not super familiar with this game. I know it's a new indie game release, so it'll be interesting to see how this works. And apparently it doesn't have a bomb, so it's going to come down to purely lives, I guess, and survival. So yes, thanks everyone for tuning into this video, and please tune in this Saturday. That's the point of this video, is to let you know that this Saturday is the event. Tune in, and I think you all will enjoy it. February 13th, starting at 8 a.m. Check out the schedule in Hararo. It'll be streamed on this YouTube channel, so it's not hard to find where it is. It'll be on this YouTube channel is where it'll be streamed. Thanks so much.